we say that what you do in September matters a little bit more, right? And then we totally devalue that when it comes to the All-Star game. So I've always sort of like taken that into account. And you're doing that by saying star power. How about a guy, an outfielder, with an 864 OPS, slugging 524, 10 home runs, 340 on-base percentage? Would that guy have a chance of being an all-star? Because those are Kelenic's numbers.
Yeah, they are. So once we get past the fan vote, it tends to be about production in the first half. Arozarena has been better than Kelenic. Brent Rooker is going to make the all-star team because there are no other Oakland A's who really are worthy of it. So you got to factor him in there too. Cedric Mullins has a really good case. Masaka Yoshida with Boston, offensive numbers are better. Detroit's going to need someone. Riley Green's going to be in there. White Sox are going to need someone. Luis Robert may be the guy. Look, if Julio doesn't get voted in, he's not going. Kelenic has a chance to go just based on his numbers. And if he gets chosen, I think it's a perfectly understandable choice and a perfectly good one. But if he doesn't, at least based on the way the numbers are falling right now, I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, he got snubbed, he got screwed, people hate the Mariners, and no, it's not one of those situations. Jared Kelenic of a month ago, those numbers, it would be a snub if he didn't go. But he's come back to earth and is still having a really, really good first half. It's just right in line with some of the other all-star candidates and behind a few.
How many Mariners pitchers could be all-stars?
Ooh. Pitching, all-star pitching selections always confuse me. I don't know what they're looking for necessarily. Is it ERA? Is it strikeouts? Is it dominance? I think Luis Castillo probably is pretty set to go. You can make an argument for Kirby. You can make an argument for Gilbert. Miller, probably not enough body of work there. So I would say the over-under is 1.5, and I'm taking the under, not because nobody is worthy, but because I think pitchers are where the dregs of the league, that tends to be like their sole all-star selection, right? That tends to be where they go.
Good stuff. And kind of thinking through this and maybe the fact that the All-Star game is going to be here, does that factor in, last thing on the All-Star game, I guess, does that factor in at all with how they make some of those choices?
It shouldn't, but yeah, it might. Once, the way All-Star voting breaks is it all just comes down to who the fans select and how to ensure that there's at least one person on every team. And then, if those things break the right way, then you can backfill with some local guys. But there's going to be enough Seattle baseball nostalgia, I think, to whet the appetites of fans that are there. How much Junior and Edgar are we going to get during that entire week?
Well,
it's going to be, and Ichiro too. It's going to be overwhelming and it's going to be awesome. But there's going to be a lot of Seattle baseball love, Mike, going on beyond what the.
I know, but as somebody who watches the team on a daily basis and dealt with a decade of them talking too much about the past and not enough about the future and the present. I of course there's going to be some Junior and some Edgar and some Felix. There should be. Those guys should be honored and they should have an opportunity to get a little national curtain call because they're some of the greats of the game and for the most part great guys. But I do hope that there is also an emphasis on the fact that this is a good young baseball team. And I don't know if they're going to win a World Series this year or ever, but I do like that Jerry has tried to build something sustainable to the point where this might not be the best Mariner team we see in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I also think that the All-Star game is baseball, not the city in which it's taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have a little tilt toward that. You can have a little nod, a little homage, but I don't think that because the All-Star game is taking place in Seattle, that makes it a Seattle-centric game. It would be nice. I mean, the reality is, Mike, if the Mariners weren't hovering around 500 all year, if they were actually 10 games over like they were supposed to be and probably, by all accounts, should be, then it would be a different story. But I think they need to make a run if your dream of a Seattle weekend is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's very true. So in order to do that, obviously you need Julio to keep doing what he's done over the last 10 days. That's been a huge help, and we keep quoting you. The Mariners go as Julio goes. Agreed. You're going to need a couple other guys to start hitting, and at some point, now that you're into the second third of the season, they're probably going to need some reinforcements, so let's kind of run through it. We've talked through some names. Are there any new potential sellers in terms of teams that are not living up to their billing?
I don't think there's a scenario in which the San Diego Padres sell. And I say this with the Padres a game out of last place in the National League West. A Padres team that if it were anyone else, it would be like, yeah, they're off to a rough start. But because the Padres have done so much with an emphasis on winning now this year, it's a bad start. Mm-hmm. And they have a ton of guys who would be very valuable elsewhere, but I don't think the Padres are going to be moving anytime soon. I look at the National League Central. It's not a good division. It's almost upside down. Like the two teams with positive run differentials are the last place and second last place teams in the Cubs and the Cardinals. And you've got the Reds sort of lingering around there, and the Pirates still right around 500, and the Brewers a little bit over. I want to say all five of those teams should sell. It's not going to be the case, but even in the East, a team like Miami that has some guys, Jorge Soler is off to a great start this year, hitting for a ton of power, and would be a guy I think a lot of teams would love to acquire and would fit right in the middle of the Mariners lineup. But the Marlins, despite having like the second worst run differential in the National League, are in second place in the National League East. So the whole thing confuses me right now. And before I go on vacation here, I am writing up a sort of trade deadline preview, and it's early, but there are a lot of different scenarios depending on how the next month plays out that I think really will inform what this deadline is going to look like.